Have you ever felt left out because of something you couldn't do? When I was in elementary school, I took swimming lessons. And low-key, I needed them. I remember going to the community pool with my friends and being terrified of getting in the deep end. They were all over there having a blast, and I was over here in the shallow end, watching. Enter swim lessons. At first, it was easy. Kicking and splashing around, breathing and making bubbles, having fun. But the further along I went, the harder it got. Treading water, learning all the strokes, diving, it took effort. There were moments of frustration and times when I wanted to quit, but I stuck with it. And eventually, spoiler alert, I made it out of the shallow end. Is it just me? Or does the idea of sharing Jesus sometimes feel like you're being thrown in the deep end? You know it looks easy for everyone else, but way too challenging for me to try. Unlike my swim lessons, our efforts don't determine the outcome. People might ignore you, reject what you have to say, or question your beliefs. These moments can be frustrating and can sting, especially when this happens with someone you truly care about. And if we know that some people aren't going to respond how we want, is it even worth taking the risk? Jesus knew that not everybody would believe what they heard about him. And he told his disciples this story, called a parable, to help them understand. Let's check out this one found over in Matthew chapter 13, starting in verse 3. Consider the sower who went out to sow. As he sowed, some seed fell along the path, and the birds came and devoured them. Other seed fell on rocky ground where it didn't have much soil, and it grew up quickly since the soil wasn't deep. But when the sun came up, it was scorched, and since it had no root, it withered away. Other seed fell among thorns, and the thorns came up and choked it. Still, other seed fell on good ground and produced fruit. Some 100, some 60, and some 30 times what was sown. Let anyone who has ears listen. Okay, so we've got this farmer called the sower in Jesus' story, some seed, and some different outcomes here. At the end of this section, Jesus said, let anyone who has ears listen. Now you might be saying to yourself, I'm hearing, but it's not exactly clicking. You're not alone. Stay with me. Let's break down what all of this means. Jesus used the example of a sower or farmer to show how people respond to his message. The seed represented the message of Jesus, and the soil represented the condition of a person's heart. Now, these can work together or they can work against each other. Jesus gave not one, not two, but 3 examples of bad soils, which translates to 3 different ways people reject the message of Jesus. But we get this glimpse of hope at the end, seeing seed fall onto good soil. That is, a heart that is receptive and changed by the message of Jesus. But back to those 3 bad soils. Jesus talked about the seed being eaten by birds, lost in rocks, and pierced by thorns. These are some pretty intense scenarios. So how exactly does this relate to people hearing about Jesus? Thankfully, Jesus explained it to his disciples in verses 18 through 23. Let's check it out. So listen to the parable of the sower. When anyone hears the word about the kingdom and doesn't understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what was sown in his heart. This is the one sown along the path. And the one sown on rocky ground, this is one who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. But he has no root and is short-lived. When distress or persecution comes because of the word, immediately he falls away. Now the one sown among the thorns, this is one who hears the word, but the worries of this age and the deceitfulness of wealth choke the word, and it becomes unfruitful. But the one sown on the good ground, this is one who hears and understands the word, who does produce fruit and yields, some 100, some 60, some 30 times what was sown. So we've got seed that gets eaten by birds, rocky soil, and thorny soil. A seed that gets eaten up is a metaphor for someone who hears about Jesus, but isn't ready for him, or even pushes him away. The seed here doesn't even take root. The seed planted in rocky soil is talking about the person who hears about Jesus and maybe is even interested in him. But when faced with a challenge, this person turns away from God instead of turning toward him. There's the seed that's planted in thorny soil. This refers to the person who hears about Jesus, but is too concerned with what the world says and chooses not to follow what Jesus says is best. With all this rejection, should we even bother sharing Jesus? Is it worth the risk? The reality is, lots of people will reject Jesus when we share about him, who he is, and why he's worth trusting. But rejection doesn't stop us from sharing. See, we are here to share Jesus. It's part of who we are as his followers. It's the heartbeat of our identity. Sharing Jesus is worth it no matter the response. It's just like a thrill ride. It might feel intense or even scary at times, but it's part of the adventure of following Jesus. And the joy you experience when someone you care about makes the best decision ever to follow Jesus, there's nothing like it. The truth is, we can't control how people respond, but we can be faithful to share. Not because we have to, but because it's part of who we are and the values we want to live out. So don't let fear stop you. Keep planting seeds and talking with people in real and authentic ways. Keep praying for good soil, for people to hear and be receptive to the truth of Jesus. Keep trusting God to do what only he can do. Because when someone follows Jesus, it's not just worth the risk, it's the greatest reward.